Hello and welcome to BQ Prime. We have with us Navin Surya from Payments Council of India. Of course, Navin, you're part of the original sort of brains behind this entire global fintech fest that's happening in Mumbai. Uh, this is the third day. We're about to wrap up the fintech fest. What are some of the key takeaways that our viewers should watch out for?
Well, there are still some sessions pending. And again, this is not just me alone. This has been a huge teamwork, right from NPCI team to our advisory board. And again, both PCI and FCC, which are all working together. So it has been a huge, I would say, outcome, even much better than what we expected. If you just very simply compare last year we saw some 30,000 people over 3 days. This time, based on the first 2 days numbers and some of the numbers that we have today, I think we are going to easily cross 75,000 footfalls. And if you see in terms of number of content, in terms of a number of sessions, reports, we kind of released during these 2.5 days over 20 reports. We have seen over 300, close to 400 exhibitors. I'm sure you yourself saw how many exhibitors out there and how packed it was. You also had investor session in the morning. Obviously, we are collating all the data for startups, where about 8 to 10 startups were to be identified for next stage of funding. There are also multiple meetings scheduled between the growth stage VC and some about 20 big founders of the growth stage. And similarly, about 4 or 5 companies on a pre-IPO, IPO stage with the large institutional investors. So all this is culminating. We'll know the investor side of details end of the day. So if you see everybody from the ecosystem, whether on the academia side, on the white papers, whether on the investor side, startup side, companies and the fintechs themselves, regulators, government, everybody was present. All of them have come. Interestingly, the global participation also increased this year. Last year was about 20%. This year we kind of seen about 25-30%. And this is where we are, I think. And all this time, even media has been present here. So thank you. Last time also were there, but better presence.
All right. Thank you, David, for that. But I just wanted to talk to you about the theme of the event. So it says a responsible financial ecosystem that is resilient, sustainable, and inclusive. I wanted you to tell me, how have you touched each of these topics?
Absolutely. So if you see, the topic was actually global collaboration and responsible innovation, right? So global collaboration, this was also the year when we are talking about G20. There are a lot of countries coming in. So if you see the country partners that we had from a global collaboration perspective, we had about 6 countries participating. Some of them are like Australia. In fact, Australia had a big delegation of fintech founders. Their own consulate people, trade commissions were all here. Israel, we also had Germany. So multiple such countries. In fact, Nepal governor was just here. And again, if you look at the number of central bankers and policymakers across the globe, we had about over 20 countries. So all of them are here from the global collaboration perspective. If you talk about responsible innovation, the interaction between the regulators, policymakers, and their delivery of messages, because there's also a message that they have to deliver, that what all they expect, what they consider responsible and not. So if you see that everybody is listening to that. And not just that, there has been separate closed-door sessions with the senior founders and the policymakers, where they again conveyed similar message that what is considered responsible innovation, what is the boundary that they are okay to kind of maintain and not to cross. So those are the discussions that also happen, and some clarification also gets out. Also, the future outlook gets discussed. And again, in 3 days, there is a limit to what we can do. But again, some sort of a broad messaging is done, which has been happening. Now, if you talk about the sub-pillars within this, when you talk about inclusion, there has been multiple sessions on inclusion, right? We also had a lot of agencies who are part of the inclusion, like CGAP, who are all participated here. You talk about resilience. I think the sustainability and resilience both, in fact, both of them are in some way linked. The sustainability could be two-dimensional, one from a green side, the second could be on the business side, right? And resilient also can mean just the robust company from a profitability perspective. So again, the messaging, again, the interaction between even investors and the companies, where there are multiple panels and even again closed-door sessions as to what do they call resilient, or what do they call robust financial performance, what do they call the right robust business model. So if you see, the discussions has been around all these 3 pillars, and these are at a very macro, right? So that has what has been going on in all kind of formats.
Okay. For the last question I wanted to ask you, the last time when the FinTech Fest happened at the same venue, a lot of fear was being spread with regard to the RBI's FinTech lending norms, right? People were a little nervous, they were a little skittish because of the way the guidelines were framed. The Reserve Bank of India governor last evening when he was speaking, he said that, we have done due collaboration and then we have, of course, changed norms wherever necessary. What is the industry's ask from the regulator?
Well, this event is not about industry ask because we have other forum. Both PCI and FCC are regularly in touch with the regulators, and a lot of discussions have happened on a proactive basis, and sometimes response to any new policy changes. So that's a separate forum. Here, it's more about the bigger picture. What can happen more? What do we do? Also about sharing the knowledge. Even the people who come from global side, they share what they're doing, what's happening in their country. So I wouldn't say it was about ask. Last time, yes, you're right. One question was did ask in the government. In the governor session about the FLDZ, which he said we are reviewing, and eventually the review did happen, and today the norms are set at 5%, so that's working smoothly. So that was a one specific incident which happened to have got asked by someone and have got resolved. But otherwise, this is not a forum to resolve these specific asks. That's not the intent.
So the SRO thing that the governor was talking about, what is the thought process there? Is that something that's being worked out for the industry?
See, if you see SRO, there are two types of SRO. One which are voluntary, which industry associations anyway run as a role, and there are multiple examples. A lot of SROs voluntary do the best practices and whatever best for the industry, right? And then they implement certain standards within the industry, whether they are recognized by RBI as SRO or not. So if you see in that capacity, the role was already being done by FCC and PCI from very early days. If I have to give one or two specific example in PCI early days when I was the chair, if you see the PPI, there was no OTP concept very early days. You had option of no KYC transaction on the wallet. But then we realized there were risk. So industry body got together and even RBI at that time said there's some issues on a risk arising. What are you going to do? So we all agreed, got together and put a standard in place that every wallet will have a compulsory mobile OTP verification done as a minimum. And everybody agreed. Later on then as the industry evolved, there were issues around velocity checks, that there are multiple transactions that happens on a particular wallet in a particular time frame. Can we have a check on that? Because that means there's something suspicious. Because usually people won't do, let's say, 10, 20 transactions in one go. So again, the new norms got designed by the industry, implemented, self-enforced. So that we did. And there's been multiple instances that has been happening on the both sides. The same thing is happening in FCC on the lending, etc., various streams. Whatever is the best practice, it's shared and followed. Now, what governor is talking about official recognition, because what happens is that when we are doing involuntary, it remains voluntary. It's a choice of some player. If they don't want to, let's say, adhere and follow, we can't do anything about it. But when it's a formalized by RBI, then everybody in the system gets a message that this is enforceable by the agency and everybody has to follow what they say. So that's a process we are in. It has multiple structural complexities that we are working with RBI for the guidance continuously and consulting all our industry players regularly that how do we achieve the best outcome, because the outcome is that we need a robust, like I said, responsible ecosystem in the country.
All right. Thank you so much, Navin, for joining us on this conversation.